Partners Academy on air. My name is Jessie Hochalter, and I'm going to be taking you through the exciting world of data feeds. All right, don't get too excited, but you can get excited because this one's going to be really, really good. So first, let me tell you something about myself. Again, I'm Jessie Hochalter. I'm the Global Programs Lead for Partner Enablement. So I work with our agencies and our partners, you guys, to help you have everything that you need to help the end customer. Hence why I'm here talking about data feeds and helping your customers win their customers. So super excited to get into this with you guys today. So let's just go ahead and dig in. We're really going to be talking about two things in this live stream. One is the importance of product data. So this is, I know you guys understand why data is so incredibly critical, but we're going to talk about why product data that feeds into your shopping ads is so incredibly important, and the hygiene of this is so important. I know, you guys are just sit down, stay in your seats. This is super exciting. Now we're going to talk about optimizing your data after that. Okay, so let's kind of dig in here. Now, I really like this. I think this is a really good analogy, kind of metaphor of what's going on in terms of the data feeds. If you look at the roots of this tree, you can see that this is our product catalog. The product catalog is the foundation of all of these beautiful trees that we see that are our clients and solutions and our clients' campaigns. And all the fruit that comes off of these trees might be the client's clients, right? So we need to make sure that our soil is tilled, and I don't really know much about gardening, so forgive me, I'm gonna probably botch this metaphor, but we wanna make sure that our product catalog and all of those things that are involved in what our products actually are nice and clean, so that when we route this into our feed, this is going to go into our merchant center and we're gonna have really, really nice shopping ads. Now, the thing that's kind of cool about this is that it doesn't stop there. So I know that this can be kind of messy and it can be a little bit intimidating to going through all of this data, and it can be just kind of a tangled mess of stuff, kind of like roots, right? But when we actually do this and we clean it up, we're setting ourselves up for success in lots of other products, not just shopping, but shoppable TrueView. We might be looking at local inventory ads, dynamic remarketing. These are all things that need this product feed in order to work correctly. So the data can be messy, but if we get that cleaned up, the results are absolutely elegant. So let's talk about how we can do that. What it's really about is translating and enriching the data that your customers give you, right? So the challenge here is that the client is responsible for providing you with the basic catalog of information. So this is the product catalog. This is everything that they sell in terms of e-commerce, right? So this is something that they're responsible for getting to you. Now, what happens here is there's an opportunity to enrich this data before it turns into that data feed and before we actually create that. So what we're doing is we're taking this client product catalog and we're turning it into a really robust and interesting data feed. And what this is going to do is once it's fed into the merchant center and goes into these shopping campaigns, we're going to have amazing ads that are going to get the best possible results for your end clients. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can do this. So we need to dig into the raw data. Now, here I just want to illustrate quickly why this is so critical. If you look at this ad, I'm going to give you guys a second here, and try to pick out something, 1, 2, maybe 3 things that are terribly, horribly wrong with this ad. Now, you might be looking at it and thinking, I don't really see anything that wrong with it. The image is totally fine. There's no misspellings. It looks pretty good, right? Yeah, there's nothing that's majorly wrong with this ad. And it's really hard to tell what we might be missing if we don't go back and actually look at what it took to set up this ad. So let's do this really quick. This is a sample of the data that was used to create this ad. So all of this stuff filtered in to create the ad. Now you might start to see a couple things that might be wrong, right? We can see that the gender and the size are both blank. Now I know you guys might be thinking, well, I don't know if it's a lady bike or a man bike. I didn't look under its undercarriage, right? No, that's not what we mean. We mean that a man, is it a man's bike or is it a woman's bike? Size, bikes have different sizes. So this is where we can fill in this information and really help figure out who's looking for what. Because if I go online and I'm looking for a woman's road bike, then I want to make sure that this information is matching up so I'm finding exactly what I'm looking for. So again, there's nothing horribly wrong with what we're seeing here, but there are some opportunities for improvement. So let's take a look at how we could improve this. All right, the title. We can see the title here. We can change that from performance road bike because that's not very specific to Fuji men's road bike 46 centimeter black, right? Now, what we did here was we included the brand in the title, right? And we included the brand also in the actual brand category rather than Acme Bikes, which is the store name. So what this is going to do is it's going to be a lot more descriptive for people who are looking for this. Again, gender, we said we're going to say this is a man's bike. So let's say it's male and the size is 46 centimeters. So what this is doing is shoppers are going to look for things that are a lot, really closely aligned with what they're looking for. They're going to see Fuji and that's going to stick out to them. They're going to see that it's a man's bike, road bike specifically, and they're going to say, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and they're going to be much more apt to click and much, much more apt to convert. So this is unique to their preferences, and it's going to help you and is going to help them. Okay, so this is what the ad would look like after we make that change. Now you can see it's a little bit longer, it's a little bit more robust, but we've got the brand in the title, we've got all of these really key details like the category, the gender, the size. We're really utilizing the description as much as we can, right? Now, if you guys are saying, okay, you're just looking to get us to improve these data feeds because you want really relevant results on Google and that's really what you're interested in, that's true. That is true. However, we need to think about beyond just getting the most relevant stuff on Google. We need to think about what can we do to make this as relevant as possible for your end advertisers. So you can do less than this, as we showed in the example before. You don't have to do all of this stuff to show up on Google, but this is going to help you qualify your consumers and help you actually get more of those sales, okay? And we want to make sure that we're being flexible because as we know, Google likes to, try out different formats. And if we have a really good, robust data feed, then this is going to help us, as an example, when things are kind of shifting and we're trying other things out. So enriching the data is going to impact across all of the shopping moments. Okay, so as an example, we can see here, this is something that didn't used to happen. We have those shopping ads kind of expand out into more of this card kind of format, right? So this is something where the more relevant your information is, the better chance you're actually going to show up here. And as we expand into other products, having that robust information is going to help you get in front of those other products as well, because the requirements might increase. We don't know that because that hasn't actually happened yet, but we know this is happening all the time. Another example of this, which I think is really cool, and we just basically looked at the data to inform these kind of new ad types, but what we found is that 87% of shoppers who were researching apparel and footwear use Google image search, okay? So rather than searching just across the web, they were actually using image search. This makes sense, right? Because if I'm looking for shoes, I want to make sure that, I want to kind of look around and see what's out there and see those quick images. So this is going to make a lot more sense than if I just search for shoes on regular Google search and then have to dig through the different descriptions. So what we've introduced are these shopping ads on image search. So again, this is something that came up that wasn't there before, that if you had this really clean, hygienic data feed in place, you were all set to go to show up for these shopping ads on image search. All right, so, and these ads are really cool. Just to give you a couple more stats about them, they're really cool because they update as you click on filters like colors, brand, style, right? So we're actually refining what they're looking for, and the ad is going to be even more relevant. So again, just to stress this point, if you don't have things like color or like gender or whatever it might be, then when they actually go to refine it, your ad might not show up even if it's exactly what they're looking for. So really, really important here. All right. Now, this is one thing that I just want to make sure we stress, and this is the attribute coverage. So attributes are essential to good product data because these attributes are what separate one product from another. This is pretty straightforward. Okay, so we have things like unique product identifiers. We're going to call those UPIs just for the sake of brevity here. But some examples of these would be things like brand, like global trade item number, like manufacturer part number. These are the things that really make that product unique, right? What is it? How is that product different from one that might look the same but is really in actuality slightly different? So think about a car part, right? I recently discovered that on the front of my car I have like a little tow hole. I had to like Google for an hour to figure out what it was, but the cover fell off. And so I have to find one that has the exact same part number before I order it, because one could be just maybe slightly bigger or slightly the wrong color. So that's why these unique product identifiers are so critical. They are used to match against Google's product catalog to ensure product validity. So again, this is where you might get into trouble in terms of making sure that that feed is actually matching what you have on the site, and the ad and everything matches up so that Google doesn't disapprove the ad. Now, second, product content. So this would be things like the title, the category, the description, the condition, right? These are required for search relevance and accurate content. So these are necessary to make sure that shoppers don't click on an ad and then they're expecting one thing and they see something different. So as an example, if in your title you say that it's brand new condition and then they click through and it's real old, they're probably not going to be super happy with you, and we're not going to be super happy with you, and the ad's probably going to get pulled down. And then, of course, price is incredibly important. Stuff like shipping, sales price, tax. So show the right purchase information to the shopper. That, again, really needs to match in terms of what is on the ad and what is on the site. So make sure you nail these attributes. And pro tip, optimize first for the unique product identifiers. Okay, and these, we should make sure we have these, as we saw in the example before, in the title, in the description. You have roughly 5,000 characters for the description. It does get truncated, as we know, but use that well. We're going to talk about that in just a minute here. Okay, so attribute coverage is incredibly important. Now, another tip here is you can work backward to find information. So develop a plan to harvest the data. This kind of sounds a little weird, harvesting data, but it's okay. So you're going to see this group of keywords here, and this might not be exactly the right format, or it might not be exactly the right language that Google's looking for in its feeds, but you can actually harvest that basic data that's sent to you from those advertisers and then find those commonly used attributes within the title. So you can see here that we can pull out the brand, we can pull out the gender or the age group, we can pull out the size, the color, right? So making sure that we're actually working backwards to get all of the relevant information in the feed so that we show up as often as possible for those really, really valuable long tail searchers, okay? All right, so our data feed is clean. It looks really great. We're loving it. Now, how do we optimize our data? Well, we only begin this after we have complete data. This makes sense. We don't want to optimize something that's not complete. So we want to increase our click-through rate and engagement by optimizing these things. So we want them to show up in as many relevant queries as possible, and we want to grow our total impressions to reach more shoppers. So we're going to show up a lot more often if we have more of these different attributes that are in there. And then we're also going to get a lot more conversions if we're optimizing and making sure that they're showing up for the right people, okay? Now I have to address this elephant in the room. Have you guys ever heard this? My client really wants to trigger a shopping ad on the query pink sofa beds, but for some reason that's not happening. Okay, this is a very, very common problem with shopping ads because shopping ads are kind of funny in that they don't have keywords associated with them. So you don't maintain a keyword list like you do for a regular AdWords campaign. Okay, this is can be seen as a negative because if there are these keywords that are really important to your client, like pink sofa beds, which by the way, if that is out there, I would definitely like one. It sounds like it would go perfect in my living room. I'm into it. But This could be really frustrating for the end client, right? But if we think about it, this is actually a good thing, because one of the toughest things with running a regular search campaign is maintaining that keyword list, right? If all we had to worry about was just having great ads and we knew that automatically we were going to show up for the right searches, that would be a lot easier in maintaining that. So we don't have to maintain this query list for every single product in our catalog, which is good news, because a lot of the times these e-commerce clients have a crazy amount of products in their catalogs. So again, yes, we're losing a little bit of control in this sense, but on the positive sides of things, we're only going to show up for things that actually make a lot of sense. And so perhaps in this case, pink sofa bed doesn't make a lot of sense, because maybe the sofa bed's actually blue and your client's slightly colorblind. I don't know, but there's probably a good reason for it. All right, so first, we need to standardize to match Google's requirements. So this is where we talked about speaking Google's language, okay? And it's really important to do this because Google is not a human. Google doesn't understand certain things, so you have to make it really clear so that you can show up where you want to show up, okay? So things like men's, girls, ladies, things like that, we want to make sure that this updates to include things like male, female, or unisex. These are the terms that Google understands. It understands male. Men's is not something that is optimized for the format. So we want to make sure everything's consistent on our end. So to do that, you need to make some tweaks in terms of the feed and the product categories on the other end, okay? 16 plus, young adult, teen, right? We want to make sure we're actually looking at the categories newborn, infant, toddler, kids, adult, etc. Okay? Condition, we might say OEM, refurb, recondition, but we only know new, used, refurbished. Okay, I could go on and on, but we want to make sure that we're actually using the language that makes sense for Google. One that's not on here that I think is a really good example and one to look out for is, you might notice, let's say you're selling something that comes in a lot of different colors, okay? Some of these colors have really cutesy names like shocking lightning neon green or something like that, or like, you know, purple powder puff purple. I guess that's purple twice, but you get what I'm saying. They have these really cute names. That is great, but Google's not going to recognize that. So you need to make sure you translate that, you know, jelly bean actually means brown. I don't really eat brown jelly beans, but you get the idea. I'm really blowing it with this jelly bean analogy here. We can cut this out, right? We're gonna edit this out? Cool, okay, thanks, good. So we wanna make sure that this is all in Google's language. Now, Google's working on this to try to understand what we mean when we're using these words and use that kind of that artificial intelligence, that machine learning, but we're not quite there yet. So we wanna make sure we're going through and doing this. We can do this manually, but I highly recommend, if you actually have to go through these lists and clean them up, that you use something like Excel or Google Sheets and just do that find and replace in there, because you can actually do this pretty easily. So if it says men's, replace with male, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of work in the beginning, but there are ways to minimize that work, and you're really going to benefit in the end because you don't have those keywords to worry about, and the ads are going to be a lot easier to build. Okay, now this is really cool. I want to make sure that we understand this. We want to match what we're showing to consumer behaviors. Okay, so consumers are really specific in what they want. So if we look at this boot here, what are some possible search queries that we could enter to try to find this specific boot? There's a lot of different things that we could do that might match. Things like rain boots. Spotted yellow rain boots, polka dot boots, women's rain boots. We could even just do flat boots. We could do rubber boots, right? There's so many different things we could enter, so many different queries that could possibly pull up this boot. So what do we do then? What's the right way to describe this boot? Well, we can use Google Trends. I've talked about Google Trends a lot before. If you guys have not used this tool, I highly recommend it. Google.com/trends, or you can get there at thinkwithgoogle.com in the tools section. But what this is going to do is you can figure out how the targeted audience that you care about is searching for products. So in this example, we can see that that red line is polka dot boots, and the blue line is spotted boots. So we can see here that very clearly we should use polka dot boots. So this is just kind of a good way to see, is there more search volume for a specific type of keyword? So pretty cool stuff here. Highly recommend you use this. So now we might have said yellow rain boots before, but in actuality, people aren't looking for yellow rain boots as much as they're looking for women's polka dot rain boots. So we're more specific, and we're focusing on the attributes that people care about and make it unique. Okay, so this is going to really help in terms of your shopping ads, not only for the quality score and how much you're paying, but also for that relevance so that people are actually converting. So really important. Some other kind of best practices for the title especially, add sizes of the items to the end of the title. So you can see here indoor running shoes. This is a lot more powerful, and it's going to drive a lot more clicks if we actually say what size they are. Because I could look at those and say, those are really cool, I want them, but then I'm like, oh, you know what, it's a size 9, so I'm not going to click because that is too small for my feet. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm not a size. This is a joke, you guys. You can, Okay, so what we don't want to do here is we don't want to exclude that, because then we're going to get people clicking on it. And if you don't have a size 7 or size 8 or whatever size we actually are, then what's going to happen is that click is going to be wasted. So we want to make sure we put those attributes like size in the title. Also, another great thing to remember when we're working on the title is if it's a high value or known brand, we want to make sure that's in the title too. And usually we like to put that at the front. So you can see here, if you just have studio headphones, you can see the Beats like logo on there, but it's not really good as eye-catching as if we're saying Beats studio headphones. So not only is that going to help when people are searching specifically for Beats, but it's also going to help because they're going to say, oh, okay, cool, those are good high value known brand headphones, right? So another great optimization to keep in mind. Now, when we're looking at the titles, another kind of some other best practices is make sure that you're appealing to what consumers actually want and shy away from some of these things. Avoid spammy titles. This could get your ad disapproved. Things like all caps, things like keyword stuffing, promo text. So you can see that stuff happening up there, lots of exclamation points, right? We want to avoid doing this. We want to include sizes, colors. If it's a high value brand like Gucci or Coach or something, we want to make sure that we're including that in the title. And we want to make sure that this is at the beginning, followed by the product, and then you're going to actually make sure that you have the more important keywords in the front. Now, remember what happens here, just to kind of an FYI, is that truncation does occur at 35 and 70 characters. So be mindful of that. That's why we want the highest value keywords toward the front. Because if we say women ankle strap heels Gucci, then Gucci just got cut off. And so we want to actually put that in the front, because if it says Gucci women's ankle strap and heels gets cut off, that's okay, because I can actually see that they're heels. Make sense? Makes sense. Cool. All right, so in terms of these titles and how to optimize them, here is a laundry list. I know this is quite long, but I highly recommend that you guys either take a screenshot of this or go back and look at this, because this is a really good overview of some of the best practices for structure for specific categories. Typically, it's going to go brand, product type, and then attributes. That's kind of the normal structure there, but you can see there's a bit of variation depending on, let's say, the green one, if it's seasonal, then we want to actually list the occasion, then the product type, then the attributes. So as an example, Mother's Day personalized storage box silver. So we're actually calling out that this is something that could be a great gift for your mom. Books, of course, we want the title, the type, the format, the author. So you can see here that this is a lot more appealing. If I were to just have the title of the book, 1,000 Italian Recipes Cookbook, hardcover, right? So we're actually saying what it is. So just take a look at some of these because these are the best practices in terms of how you optimize those titles depending on the categories. So super important there, but if you remember brand, product type, attribute, you should be generally okay. All right. And in terms of the titles, let's just go through this checklist very quickly. What we want to do is we want to, again, ensure that your most important keywords are included in the title. And like I said, keep in mind the 35 and 70 character truncation that happens. And another great thing to do is use the search query report to see which queries have converted for your products and use them for titles and descriptions, right? So get into these more granular reports and see what's actually bringing people to these different product listings. And then you'll be able to take that information and retool it and actually put it in your ads and make it more enticing. Mirror product information on the website. This is so important. So make sure that the product information that you're showing in the ads matches the product information that they're going to see when they actually go to your site. This is important for a lot of different reasons. One, most importantly, your ad could be actually not shown if this isn't happening. So if you're saying one price in the ad and it's not the same on the website, then your ad is going to be pulled. We need that consistency. Two, it's a terrible user experience, right, if this isn't happening. So they're not actually going to convert if you do that. So we know this was really frustrating if we see one thing and then we end up on the site and it's something completely different. And again, place the most important information first. So we want to include those important keywords, but include them first because titles might be truncated on the results page. Okay, so important checklist there. Now, we talked a lot about titles, but descriptions are also really important. You have about 5,000 characters for the description, so you can see it's quite a bit of text, but we want to make sure we're using it correctly. So this first description, we're using all of the characters, but if you just kind of glance over it, it's not that compelling. It's, love the various flavors and tastes of wine. Okay, like that's, a little fluffy. But if we go to the second one, we're actually making really good use of that description. We're getting right into it. This is the wine cork trivet kit. It's a wood frame trivet filled with used wine corks. So set it up, arrange it, right? So we're actually getting into what it is, why it's so great, how we're using it, and then we can get into some of the more specifics of it, how big it is, what it's made of, all of that stuff. So really important that we're taking advantage of the description. This is something that if they're, the description again could be a little bit truncated, but we want to make sure if they're looking at the whole thing that they're getting a really clear idea of what it is. Also, I love here how they, the picture, we'll talk about pictures in just 1 second here, but the picture of the first kind of ad there it's a little bit unclear what it is. So it looks like, you can see that it's kind of a trivet, but it's not. It says it's a kit, but it looks like it's already put together, so it's a little bit confusing. Whereas the other one, it's actually shown it being used as a trivet, and it's shown, the one in the back is before you actually put it together. So much, much better use of the picture there. So really optimize in that sense. Speaking of pictures, you want to make sure that the product images are glamour shots. Okay, so I can see one picture here that is not very glamorous, and that is not going to do us very much good there. So some best practices here: the main image should be taken on a solid white or light colored background. The reason for this is that the Google search results page, as you guys know, is on white, so it's going to make things look a lot cleaner, a lot clearer. It should have a clear view of the product being sold, not in the packaging, but a really good idea of what it actually is. Use the highest resolution that you can for the images, and consider different angles, bundles, that kind of thing. Don't use logos, don't use promotional text in the images. Of course, they're going to be logos if it's, a logoed item on the actual item, but don't include a logo like, photoshopped into it. That's a no-no, and that could get your ad disapproved. So make sure it's really clear and shows exactly what that item actually is. Okay, really, really important. All right, And then I'm going to wrap this up with merchant promotions messaging. This is very cool. So we can acquire, convert, and save. And the way we can do this is by showing shoppers discounts and promotions right on the ad. So why do we want to do this? One, we can boost our click-through rate because we're actually highlighting our listings and we're giving them an incentive to click, right? 25% off when you buy 2 or more. You're going to increase conversions by giving them that urgency, a reason to buy now. So they're saying, okay, there's only a couple weeks left on this deal. And most importantly is you can avoid paying affiliate commissions if you just use the coupons and deals on Google, if you use these promotions messaging through the Merchant Center. So you can see here, it's as simple as, clicking this box and adding a little information. You can see that down at the bottom. So this is a great way to just get that additional urgency on your product. And this can be a really great thing to do. Like, for example, this is back to school. Memorial Day just happened. 4th of July is coming up, stuff like that, where you can actually take advantage of some of those holidays and give them an offer to entice them, especially those first-time buyers. So really, really cool stuff here. All right, that was a lot of data feeds, but I think we're finally through it. So let's talk about the key takeaways, and we'll see if you guys have any questions on this. So key takeaways. If you guys remember nothing else, remember that you want to enrich and improve your client's raw data before transforming it into a feed and sending it to the Merchant Center where you're actually it's gonna, grow into a beautiful ad. We want to fill in the gaps. So the way we're going to enrich and improve that data is by filling in gaps. If there are things missing like gender, size, those types of things that we don't really think of when we think of certain items, make sure those are in there. Focus on attribute coverage. So we talked about some of these, but focus first on the attributes in terms of what makes that item unique, those unique indicators, okay? Avoid vague data, avoid vague descriptions. Make sure that you're speaking Google's language, right? When you're optimizing your data, start by understanding what consumers are actually searching for, okay? Using things like Google Trends, google.com/trends, really, really great tool for this. We can also take a look in our account, look at our search query report, understand what people are searching for, and use that as you're optimizing. Use language that Google understands. Again, there's lots of shortcuts you can do there, but you're going to be way better off if you actually clean that data up first and optimize in that way. And then take advantage of your descriptions. Utilize that space, the characters that you have there, but do it in a nice way that actually gives people the information they're looking for. Take advantage of photos, make sure that those are high resolution and that you're showing the best of your product. And finally, take advantage of those promotions, okay? So this is Google data feeds. I hope that was as exciting for you guys as it was for me. So now let's see if you guys have any questions. Okay. Give these a second to come in. All right, here's a question that I'm sure is on everyone's mind. Why might my shopping ads be disapproved? Okay. So your shopping ads could be disapproved for quite a few reasons. I know this can be a sore spot, and honestly, that's why we're talking about this today, your data feed hygiene, because a lot of this can have to do with that data feed. So there are things that maybe your data feed is not consistent with the landing page. Like we mentioned, this can get your ad pulled down or disapproved. We don't want that spammy language. That can be a big deal. So things like, the all caps, the exclamation points, things like that. Let's see, questionable content, right? So we don't want any of that. We don't, there's certain things that we can't advertise on Google, so those will be disapproved. Also, if we're not meeting the minimum attribute requirements, this can also be a problem. So the attribute requirements, you can actually look this up. It's on the Health Center, or the Help Center, not the Health Center, because it is kind of that too. But you can look up the minimum attribute requirements that you need and just make sure that you have those. Because if there's not enough information for us to know if it matches what people are looking for, then this really isn't a good ad experience. And so we're probably going to disapprove it. Okay, so Good question. There are lots and lots of reasons, but I would go through, there's lots of great resources out there where you can actually look that stuff up and see what and troubleshoot. Okay. Let's see. In Google Trends, is there anything for travel and or tourism? Yes. So let me just quickly, this is a really, really good question. Let me quickly explain what Google Trends actually does. I highly recommend you go in there and play with it, but you can use it in a couple different ways. So if we're talking specifically travel and tourism, we can look at different categories and actually see what's happening in those categories. But the thing that it's really cool for is actually just putting in search terms. So you can say, you can get even more specific than that, like, you know, travel agent or trips to the Caribbean or whatever it might be, and you can see how the search volume has changed over the year or years. The data goes all the way back to 2004. So there's a lot of data there, and you can actually get down to the level of a city. So you start out with, you know, when you actually go in there, it's going to be the whole world's worth of data, but you can actually take that down to US, you can take it down to a state, and you can actually go down to a city. So yes, there's information about travel and tourism. You just need to enter in either that category or those specific keywords. And this is index data, so it's not going to show you exactly how many queries are actually happening, but it will show you relative to other searches, which is why in the rain boot example, you know, this is going to be really important. Okay. All right. Okay, this is a really good one, and I'm tempted to just not answer it, but I'm going to because I really appreciate you calling me out on this. Your Fuji bike example said to call it Fuji men's bike, but later you said you shouldn't use men's, you should use male, because that's the language Google understands. You are so right, and I am so sorry that I didn't catch that. That is an excellent catch, and I'm so happy that you were paying that much attention. Yes, so something there's a couple things there. One, I would say the main takeaway is that it's not best practice, so shame on us and this deck for not having that, using the correct language. It can still show up, especially when you're using it in the title. But when you're actually going through it in the product feed and it's those categories, that's what's going to be most important, is when you're actually specifying the categories so that they trigger the search terms. That's when you really want to make sure you're using that language that Google understands. In the title, it's not as important, but I do agree with you that for the sake of consistency, that we probably should have had that be male. So thank you for calling me out on that. They're a little slightly different, but that's a really excellent point. So you just want to kind of stick to Google's language all around. Good. Okay. Let's see. How big does my image need to be? Okay, so your image, the image actually, the size changed. It just increased, I think, last year. For non-apparel items, it used to be like 32 by 32, and now it's 100 by 100 pixels is the minimum requirement. Of course, you should make it, it should be bigger than that. You should make it as clear and have as good a resolution as possible. And then apparel items actually need to be a bit bigger at 250 by 250 pixels. So make sure that you have really nice, clear images. This can also be, if you're not meeting those minimum requirements, this can also have your ad pulled down. Okay. Here's an interesting one, and this one's more, I think, philosophical. So I'm gonna give my opinion, but there may be variations on this. At what point do you draw the line on how many products a client should promote? They have products from $5 all the way up to $4,000. Thoughts? Okay, so my thought here is, as long as they have a really solid feed and it's not difficult for them to maintain this feed, then they can promote as many of these products as are profitable. So the $5 products, what you want to be looking at is really that return on ad spend or the return on investment. And you can see in Google AdWords when you're running these shopping campaigns, there's a column that shows you what the return on ad spend actually is. And if you're showing a good return on ad spend, meaning really anything over 1, so you're getting more money back, of course you have to factor in other things like the overhead and things that, like that. So you need to discuss that with your advertiser specifically. But if you're seeing return on that $5 item, then I would say there's really no limit. The $5,000 items, same thing. Those are going to be a lot tougher to sell via e-commerce. But if you are seeing that it's profitable, then that is fantastic. So I would say there really is no limit. Just take a look, break these things down, and make sure that you're understanding exactly what the return on ad spend is, and then maybe get rid of the stuff that's not converting for you. Okay. I am going, oh my goodness. Okay, there are a lot of questions. I am going to have to, we're just about at time. So I am going to see if there's any last minute ones. Here's one this one's a quick one, so I'm going to end on this. When do data feeds update? This is going to depend. You can manually pull it, and you can also set it to automatically pull. So it's going to depend on the settings that you have, but this is something that is pretty consistent depending on how you have it set up. So if you have a good data feed and that's not something that's manually taken care of on the client side, then this can be updated very, very regularly. So it depends how you have it set up, but it could be pulled kind of, in real time. So I'm going to cut it there. I'm so sorry if we did not answer your questions, but they're on the community page, so we will get to them if we can. But thank you guys so much for your engagement and for joining me and talking with me, or letting me talk at you about data feeds. And we will see you next time. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. Take care.